And we are live. Hello.
Hello, Internet.
Yes. This is a new episode of Scuttlebutt, a hard-fought episode. It took us a little while to get rolling because I think a little bit of end of the summer vacationing and the craziness before school. But we are on together talking about a thing we've been trying to talk about for a long time.
Yes, a thing I think about quite a bit. Occupies pretty large corner of my brain most days.
Does it? Well, then you might enjoy this introductory song.
Uh-oh.
I am Arthur Frey,
You sure are, Arthur.
and I am Zardoz.
What? Two
I
floating
live
heads.
300 years, and I long to die.
Oh, God damn it, look at that.
You tell us the 70s. West was
Death
the
is no longer
instrument.
possible.
Chewbacca with more body hair. Oh,
All right. Well, there's 8 minutes of
Damn.
that, so I won't I won't inflict any more of that than need be.
oh, come on. I want to buy the rights to whatever that was. That's my
All right.
calling card right there. Should just can the rest of the podcast. Just talk about that.
What is podcasting except a bunch of floating heads talking into your ear and warning you about the future?
Oh, see, if I had a green screen right now, okay, I got to hook that up. I just want floating head on a black field. Oh, and I thought for a hot minute, for longer than I should have, I thought about doing the drawn-in mustache goatee combo, a la Arthur Frayne / Zardoz.
Yeah, he
Hell
styles
of a
himself a magician, a wizard. The drawn-on mustache. Like, I feel like there's the theatricality of his role, and maybe we're just sort of jumping in this maybe a little too fast here, but like I feel like there's some theatrical tradition he's trying to tap into as a character or as a role that, like, I feel like I could research and maybe figure out, but I don't know. What does the drawn-on mustache mean to you?
What doesn't it mean? Well, in the opening monologue, which again is a character named Arthur Frayne, who says that he's an immortal who's been alive for 300 years. He's got the ancient Egyptian do-rag thing going on. They all do,
Yep.
except for Connery. And he says that he's a false god named Zardoz, and but he also says basically like everything you're about to see is like a possible future. Like, he goes out of his way to explain that like everything you're about to see is fake.
Yeah. Well, he fully breaks the fourth wall at the end of the movie.
Oh yeah. Well, he's breaking it at the beginning.
Yeah.
He breaks it at the end. Basically telling you, yeah, all of this is fake bullshit. His big line is, hold on, is God in show business too? And it's like, oh, you're one of these big idea sci-fi movies, aren't you? Oh, okay.
I mean, there's a lot of fruit on that tree. For this movie is very much big ideas, and I want to get
capital
into
B,
it.
capital I.
Yeah, but we should probably rewind a bit and just remind everybody. Yes, we are talking about, let's see, the 1974 movie Zardoz, starring a well-carpeted Sean Connery in a diaper, diaper and a revolver, and it is deeply dripping with 70s big ideas of existentialism, immortalism, I don't know, artificial intelligence to some extent. Is it still relevant today? Is it
Was it relevant in 1974?
Is it an intelligible movie? I think we'll be digging into all of this, hopefully. We'll see if we come to any conclusions. With this movie, I kind of suspect not, but you never know.
We'll reach conclusions.
All right, fair enough.
Oh yes, I've reached conclusions.
So yes, 1974. I was -1. Were you alive in 1974?
I was -3.
-3. Got it. And John Boorman made this movie.
1977, as you can see from the show.
Oh, there it is. The Star Wars here. John Boorman made this movie after the unbridled success of Deliverance.
A great
I did
film.
not realize that he had made Deliverance.
Yeah, this was like, I got clout. This is the movie I'm going to make now.
Well, so this wasn't the movie he wanted to make.
Well, yes.
The movie he wanted to make was Lord of the Rings. And watching this movie, it was a little bit of a hanging question. I was just like, okay, what the fuck would Lord of the Rings have looked like if this guy did it in 1974? And I won't deny that, like, I think my imagination was kind of competing with my eyeballs a little bit, trying to imagine that while I was watching, because I kind of think, I mean, we have a couple examples of like 1970s and early 1980s attempts to bring Lord of the Rings to the screen, and like they got pretty weird. But I feel like John Boorman, especially if we're looking at Excalibur, would have reached deep into some weakness. He could not afford to make Lord of the Rings. I guess he submitted a budget maybe, and they were like, please, we'll give you $1 million so you to make whatever you want. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna get a bunch of Irish hippies naked and we'll make Zardoz.
It's a good fallback plan if you have access to a lot of, stoned Irish teenagers.
And I mean, as much as we want to characterize them as like hippies or stoners, like I feel like there was work put into this movie.
Oh yeah,
like true believers, like these were thespians being all like, I've got to thespian the shit out of this.
Oh yeah,
because I don't understand what the hell's going on, but I think there are big ideas, and I think I've got to like, and man, let's talk about the get of Sean Connery.
Yeah,
Sean Connery was already James Bond at this point, and was a little bit like, I don't want to be typecast. Let me go experimental, and showed up, and John Boorman was like, I'm going to put you in a red diaper. I'm going to put you in a wedding dress. Like, are you down with this? And he's like, of course I'm down with this. I want to be respected. And so put me in the diaper. I want to be respected.
Apparently, yeah, they said they had to really fight with him to get him into the wedding dress for like a quick scene at the end. It was like, but the red diaper you were cool with.
I mean,
the wedding dress. Oh, that might make me look silly.
I mean, there is a lot of kind of crackpot 70s like gender exploration there that I have to imagine was a little bit of a tricky sell to famous woman slapper Sean Connery. But he did it. So there you are. He put in the work. The work was done. I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna sell it. I'm gonna like get up front and run around with my little dongling. And yeah, so Zardoz is definitely one of these movies that you're watching it and you're like, how the hell did this get made? What the hell was everyone smoking back in the 70s? And I think like I ended up in a place of like envy where I'm just like, God damn, that was like a wild time that all those factors would come together to make a movie like this. What would it have been like to be in the middle of like this artistic revolution where people are willing to throw money and effort and emotion into huge weird ass ideas, and like, are we ever gonna see kind of like a period of like artistic experimentalism at that level again? I don't know. And that's the weird thing, is because like I feel like I didn't totally like the movie, but I found myself like overwhelmed with this feeling of cultural envy, I think I would put it. Does that
Yeah.
track?
No, yeah, it's like if you had, $1.5 million in 1974, which I don't know what the exchange rate is now, but it's under 10
It's
million.
always supposed to be like multiply by 64. I think is the cocktail napkin. So 64 million to make the movie you want.
I feel like you could have made a lot better looking film for than they. But apparently, you can get Connery, you can get James goddamn Bond to be in your weird ass art film about floating heads and transhuman immortals in the future. You can just go buy that. It'll take up a quarter of your budget apparently, but you can get Sean Connery, you can put him in a red diaper and thigh-high boots and have him do the James Bond gun to the camera for his opening. Boom.
Before Sean Connery, it was going to be Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
That would have been a movie.
I mean, either way, I think you're in the black there.
That's true.
But
yeah. Well, I'll let you finish your thought. Sorry, I'm talking a little over you.
I think the only guy nowadays I think you could do that with is Nick Cage.
Yeah.
If you've got the strangest idea, if you want to put him in pounds of makeup and bad white grease paint over that and a long shaggy gray wig, you can make a long legs. Another movie I just watched yesterday.
I don't know what Long Legs is, but if it stars Nick Cage, I'm probably on board.
It stars Nick Cage in a way that, in probably the worst way you can think of, like he kind of stomps all over the movie. It's a very strange, dark, dread movie, and then you see Nick Cage going his full like weird kabuki. What is
well? That's what he does.
Oh yeah,
but he doesn't. He mega acts. That's his calling card. You're on a little bit of a Cage streak. I heard you watched Color Out of Space, but I don't want to distract us from.
No,
yeah. So the question I want to present to both of us. I'm not sure who should try to answer this first. What's Zardoz about?
Zardoz is. Hey, what if you took the Wizard of Oz and the wizard is a guy who controls a floating stone head, and Dorothy is 1974 Connery wearing as little as possible, and add drugs, add more drugs than you think should be healthy for what you're trying to accomplish here, and a lot of off-screen sex happening between the cast and whatever women are around, and throw that in a Vitamix and just blend it until it's smoking, and you'll get Zardoz.
Well, I feel like that's a good answer to what Zardoz is.
Okay.
But I'm kind of wondering if it's an answer to what Zardoz is about. Like the grasping of the big ideas, like where, like if you're to kind of peel back all of like how it got made, which is 100% what you said, like what's the statement that John Boorman is trying to make, and maybe he doesn't have one, and that's, I don't know. I have a theory, but I'm kind of curious what yours is.
Well, he's either not trying to make a statement, or I think he's making about 20 statements at the same time. It's a little crowded as far as the big ideas are, but I think he's making a statement about the nature of religion, the nature of power structures. We have these. We should probably talk a little, give a little bit of a synopsis of the movie, in as much as that's possible.
Yeah, it's really hard because I mean I watched it. I watched it sober. I paid attention. I tried to take notes, and I don't think I could give you a blow by blow of the events of this movie. Like, it is so experimental. I mean, I can roughly kind of break it into kind of acts. But like there's the through line of the movie is incredibly kind of vague and unclear.
Yeah. So we have,
And
yeah.
I could take a stab at it maybe before I answer what I think the movie is about. Um, sure. So Zardoz is a classic. Okay, so like this is the science fiction trope of the divided future, right? Like you've got whether it's the Eloi or the Morlocks. In this case, you have um technologically advanced, essentially immortal humans called Eternals, and then you have uh a savage, they're called brutals, living in an irradiated landscape.
Yep.
And the basic pecking order is that uh, the Eternals give the brutals guns and religion in exchange for food, wheat.
Right.
There's a lot of bread in this movie.
Yeah,
And
very carb heavy.
and so it's the first
the
act is
Eternals
kind of
live in behind a force field like thing they call a nexus.
yeah,
And
it's basically the village from The Prisoner.
exactly. It's just this lovely English country estate, surrounded by irradiated wastelands.
It feels very 70s that like the ultimate picture of utopia is like hippies on a manor house.
Yeah, it's a commune.
It's totally
it's a bunch of 20
they go fully commie. Like there's a whole bunch of references to that. So this is a society that starts out, but one brutal, aka Sean Connery, is just like, I don't like this system, I'm gonna change it. And so the primary mode of communication is a big floating head the Eternals send to the irradiated landscape. It spits out guns. It makes a bunch of sexist speeches, and then they load up the floating head with grain, and it floats back to the Nexus.
The gun is good. The penis is evil.
Yep, and that's just so delightful because it really is like.
And it gives them guns by puking them out of its giant stone head mouth.
And bullets, too. Although I noticed the bullets are all shotgun shells. And the guns are all rifles. And it's a little head scratchy where it's just like, wait a minute. And
I'm
also,
not a gun guy either, but that doesn't look right to me.
Like the Eternals have gun manufacturing facilities, but they don't have farming. like why would you rely on a savage state of warfare to be your food source? Anyway, whatever.
Well, they're trying to keep the population in check. I mean, there's clearly been some kind of world war. This movie takes place in, as the opening says, it's set in 2293, which is like, set in? That's a weird way. Again, it's like, yes, what we're showing you is made up bullshit.
Yeah.
Do not believe any of this. What you are about to watch, we made it up.
Yeah, that's the theatrical element. It's. I mean, to me, this feels very 70s experimental, where they're a little bit like, oh, it's a movie, but we're thinking in terms of like plays and in terms of like, oh, you're aware of the presence of the stage and it's conceptual, and like we're playing with all this light and mirrors and smoke, and we're gonna like recognize that it is all light and mirrors and smoke. So it's very metatextual, heavily metatextual, and I can understand in 2024 why that would be like a huge turnoff, but I think everybody was totally jazzed about that back then.
Well, I don't know how jazzed they were. It was kind of a flop.
Well,
it's become kind of a legendary like head scratcher film since then.
I only mean jazzed about it because there's like so many movies that I think attempted like this sort of, I don't know, this level of metatextual storytelling. It was sort of a very experimental cinematic age. Zardoz, yes, I think it's arguable they didn't really pull it off, but I think the hope is that there's a kind of audience forgiveness you get from that, where like if you're being metatextual and you're being a little bit like self-referential, then the audience is it's weird because I think the modern audience, it reduces the forgiveness. We are a generation, I think, really sort of built on decades upon decades of like high level CGI and attempts at like attempts at building cinematic realism, at least in terms of like effect and spectacle. And I think back then, they were like, oh, the satire and the metatext and the self-referencing, it's all there to kind of like get people into like a carefree mood, like you're just feeling looser about watching this. But maybe it didn't work. I mean, it probably didn't work. But synopsis wise, let's see. So Sean Connery sneaks aboard the giant head and he finally makes it to the village, the Nexus, and he meets all the Eternals, and the Eternals don't know what to do with him, right?
The Vortex, sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Nexus would be a better name. I don't know why it's called the Vortex, but yeah.
And indeed, the Eternals sort of like are a mixed society of just like stoned airheads who stand around kind of cluelessly, and and elites like scientific, the psychic, I don't know.
Yeah, they're
architects.
they have some kind of supercomputer artificial intelligence called the Tabernacle, which keeps them forever the same age. If they die, it grows a new version of you.
Yeah.
And any crime you commit, your sentences, you get aged, which is a kind of a neat idea,
That was actually one of the most fascinating bits is the idea that if you live in an immortal society, your punishment is that you
become more feeble and
you're given months or years of your life, but you're still immortal and you're just kind of a little bit infirm, and that's pretty fucked up if you think.
Yeah, it is.
And so they definitely present the Eternals as being not corrupt, but like decadent and stagnant. And there's a big reveal as like Zed is first he's mind controlled and he's sort of like struggling to make sense of the society, and then he comes across like a mural, and the mural sort of has the big twist reveal that the Eternals are actually devolving, that that they are like they're showing kind of like the ascent of man, but then the Eternals are actually kind of descending back maybe into apehood or something like that, which is like,
well, there's a whole segment of their society that's so that they call the apathetics, where they literally just stand around slack-jawed.
They're like stuffing bread into their mouths, like and there's no shortage of social commentary there. Like, I think even back in the 70s, I think there was this fear of this stagnancy, which is crazy because like the 70s were actually coming out of the 60s, like an incredible volatile time of like social and sexual revolution. Like I think I was talking about the envy I had for like just the creative juice that fucking decade had.
Yeah.
And yet even then they were like, I think kids are watching too much TV. I think we're like or whatever. Like there's this fear of losing meaning and losing purpose. And if I was to throw a bet out as to what this movie is about, it is very much about that, and it's even a little bit of a trope at this point. The idea that immortality, especially, like breeds stagnancy and breeds dehumanization. It's like this is a little bit transhumanism before transhumanism sort of became like a topic of speculation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like, first of all, de-evolution isn't even a thing, right? There's only just evolution. Evolution is just like the species, adapting to their environment over time, and that's just what evolution is. And there's no real like evidence, or I think scientific understanding that like evolution is a betterness, that even though the arc of like human history is a growth of intelligence and adaptability and dominance, like that's not really evolution. I mean, that's just anyway. I don't know if I want to get into it, but like the whole idea that like, oh, we will return to a more savage state of man, like that would just be evolution continuing to evolve to deal with an environment that we're in.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a theme in running through like if I had to pick out a theme that I think works as well today as it did then, it's that, an older, more quote unquote sophisticated generation maintaining all of the power over the younger people. And for 1974, I think this would have been the greatest generation, the one that won the previous apocalyptic war, and have kind of outlived their usefulness, but still have all of the power over the younger generation, which they maintain through kind of scheduled violence, a big glorious religion, and various aphorisms that their floating stone head gods throw out to the people, the young people being the brutals, I guess, in this case, these uncultured, heathens roaming the wasteland that they kind of helped, the older generation kind of helped create. So, I think you could see that, now in the same way as we have a larger and growing older population in the world, eating up more and more resources to be kept alive past their usefulness. It's not my I'm not saying let's eugenic the old people. I'm saying the philosophy of this movie might say that's what is
so
there.
Classism and generationalism. I mean, like, one could say that we are getting closer and closer to immortality. We're certainly living longer and longer and longer. Like, that's a chart that keeps going up, and a lot of people think, well, it'll plateau at some point, but who knows? Maybe we'll all be spliced with lobsters at some point and then no longer be aging. I don't know. And it's a classic science fiction trope, like in every episode of Star Trek to some extent, that like immortality becomes a form of decay. And like lots of people speculate, like, what would happen if we truly were immortal? And like even vampire stories are like about this, right? It's this idea that like if you live forever, you lose touch with like things of meaning, and honestly, like, kind of, actually, I mentioned Star Trek. Star Trek's one of the few visions of a little bit of that future that isn't pessimistic, that is a little bit like, actually, if in a post-scarcity world of health and longevity, like we'd be our best selves. Like, we wouldn't be like held down with all of the struggles of life. We would be explorers and scientists and researchers and embracers of life. And I want to lean in that direction. And if Boorman's very much trying to make this point that that the arc of longevity and maybe immortality will result in the like de-evolution of humankind and meaning, I'm just a little bit like, what if like there's something really, like, if anything holds us down to some extent sometimes, I feel like it's this idea that like the savage part of ourselves is crucial. And like a lot of science fiction kind of makes this point, and to some extent this movie like makes that point. It's this idea that like you need a fucking bare-chested psycho murderer like Sean Connery to come around and have sex with all your women, and like he's gonna rejuvenate your humanity. and
Or you need Burt Reynolds,
right?
And arrow.
There's a part of me that's like, yeah, I get it. Like, life and excitement is very much tied to sex and violence. Like, there's, I understand that the other side of the creation coin needs to be destruction, to some extent. But like, but to like balls out say like we need our savagery, that's a statement that I've always been like, do we? Like, do we really? Like, I can't think of like many points in history where I can say, I mean, some people, make the idea of war as a kind of a cleansing of human and a spark of progress to some extent. But like, I don't know. I'll, I don't know if it's true, but I will say that I definitely believe that health and longevity, and I would say kind of like a post scarcity freedom, I think would result in much more meaning of life than less. I think that's a belief I'd be willing to like throw on the table at maybe John Boorman and be like, come on, man. Like, now, the other half of this movie is kind of about artificial intelligence to some extent.
Yeah.
And that's certainly kind of like a topical subject, and certainly something that is very debatable and discussable in terms of like merits and the impact it would have on us and the impact maybe it's having on us right now. I don't know if we want to kind of go into it too much. What did you think of Boorman's representation of AI in this movie? Sean Connery talking to this crystal in his hand.
The most 1974 ass,
Yeah.
exploration of artificial intelligence is, him staring into a crystal and say, "I see nothing inside but my own perplexity." Like,
Yeah.
you and me both, Connery.
Yep.
It's a little fuzzy. So they have the tabernacle, this AI that maintains like kind of the equilibrium of the vortex civilization. It keeps them immortal. It regenerates them if they die. But it's hard to say. Like, what is it? I mean, what does it do other than that? What is it for other than that? I mean, it maintains them, but
well, it offers the big narrative twist, which is that it's revealed to Sean Connery that he's been bred to overthrow the Eternals society by this by this wizard, this Arthur
Frayne, yeah.
And Arthur Frayne is finally like in a total like Matrix 2 like move, like this has been architected for
right.
I've been alive for 300 years and I've been carefully working on this plan to build a super soldier to overthrow our society. And then Sean Connery comes back and is just like, well, I've looked into the heart of of the tabernacle and I've discovered that you in fact have been bred to create me, and it's very much like one of these like
plots within plots.
Yes. Which came first, the Batman or the Joker? Like, okay. And I think that's just an attempt to be like trying to blow a mind a little bit. I don't know, like I could there's no way I could fathom, okay, but what's the Tabernacle's plan in all this? Like, why did he like build the system to destroy itself and or whatever?
I mean, the Tabernacle upholds their entire civilization, so it could just like say, just turn off one day. Why does it need to do all this? Ridiculous wheels within wheels. Yeah. So Arthur Frayne, the Tabernacle through Arthur Frayne has been kind of selectively breeding the Brutals to create like, an Ubermensch. And Zed, Sean Connery's character, is that he is the one. He's there to, it really is a Matrix thing because he returns to the mainframe and alters the entire.
Yeah.
So, oh boy, we need to. Oh no, are we going to have to examine all this through the Matrix now? Oh, what have I done?
Well, it's certainly insightful, I think, to compare the two movies. More that like I think that's a story that is like fundamentally mythological, and we know John Boorman loves his myth, right?
Yes.
And like this because even Arthurian legend kind of touches on this idea of like the creation returning to destroy the creator.
Right.
Um,
Oh, there's Jungian archetypes abound.
yeah, and it
I
goes all
mean,
the way
it's
back to Prometheus myth to some extent, and
right.
you know, I love that. I love that idea of humanity as like the rebellious child, the like, you know, the little mischief maker that's just like you're always trying to dominate me, or you know, you create me to be subjugated, but then I rebel and destroy everything. And so in as much as I kind of like hate that vision of the future that like progress and health like would breed stagnancy, clearly there's something about the idea of like the purpose and savagery that I kind of like a little bit. That's just and I mean like so much of the like bad stuff that I love lives in that area, lives in that like um those themes of defiance, those themes of like shit's been wronged and I'm the beekeeper and I'm gonna burn everything to the ground. And it's like so uh there's something there that just fucking intensely resonates. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, hell yeah. Like um I was thinking about like, you know, the speaking of gerontocracy and the crazy 70s and like kind of the political pendulum, right? Like the 60s was this incredible like social revolution. The 70s was this panic of like experimentalism and defiance. And then the 80s, the Reagan era was like this like you know, answer to that, this like authoritarian crackdown of society to bring back normalcy and traditional values. And you know, and I think you and I grew up in the 80s and 90s with a little bit of a counterculture against that, with like punk and grunge and stuff. So there's a cycle of like culture and counterculture and you know, and trying to kind of control that stuff. And I think we're even seeing that like right now in a lot of ways. um and it always feels like places are getting traded, like they're just trading places back and forth. um uh and so there's a thing where I kind of watch like a movie like Zardoz and just and that's like that's the meaning that I immediately grasp for, where it's just like, oh, this is just, you know, an exploration or a critique of class society clashings and yeah, and like, you know, uh the 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 savage and energetic youth versus the like wise but oppressive you know, uh 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 aged. And I never know where to go with that. Like I see it all the time, but I never know to be like, okay, but like what's the profound or um I don't know, stabilizing observation around that. I always come up a little bit empty.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's great to see all the tits and the mirrors and the like weird kaleidoscope like shots and you know, J- Sean Connery having conversations with crystals and wearing wedding dresses and like there I, I there's a point there where I actually got overwhelmed by that level of like weird
I'd say, yeah, the
throwing
last,
shit on the screen just to like throw it on the screen to
yeah,
have it. But
the last 15 or 20 minutes of this
yeah,
movie is crazy shit being shotgunned at you automatic. Just, yeah, here's Connery in a wedding dress. Here's him like falling into you know, crystal portal.
that's my favorite shot. That's my favorite shot when he
Amazing,
approaches
right?
the mirrored pyramid and he's all, I'm being sucked in, and he's all behind it like a fifth grader doing the elevator trick, you know, like it's just like, yes. It's all the smoke and mirrors, and like that's the shot that made it into
It's
the
crazy. Yeah, it's crazy production design. It's in that last act. Yeah, it's just like we're pulling out all of the weird.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you thought it was weird going into this? No. We're going to, every shot is going to be something completely bizarre you've never seen before and likely will never again.
Oh man, 70s cinema is filled with that desperate attempt to mind blow in the final act, like 2001.
Yeah.
Like it has like 5 minutes of a like Pink Floyd laser light show, and it's just Stanley Kubrick just like masturbating cinematically on the screen just for way too long. But I can just imagine like you're just some stoned hippie in a movie theater going, "Wow, like, this is so crazy." And I don't know, maybe being a little Generation X, maybe being a little bit of the jaded generation, like we see that stuff and our inclination tends to be to roll our eyes and not to kind of like lose ourselves in it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting how, like, especially this period in the 70s where, I don't know when, what's his name? The guy, George Lucas, the, like mythology guy. He's always a,
right.
I think that was kind of becoming, a very like key text for people, for artists in that era. So there's this whole period there of, the early to, mid 70s, these filmmakers all kind of swimming in that, looking at archetypes and you've got George Lucas who's just like, just ran down the list of archetypes. Okay, well, that's going to be this guy. That's going to be this, the scoundrel. That's going to be Han Solo. And then I think you have this movie where it was taking kind of the themes of, this psychological struggle and, maybe kind of handling that about as artfully as George Lucas might have, but yeah, it was interesting, taking, in the 50s and 60s, science fiction was very much just straight allegory. The Day the Earth Stood Still is a Christ allegory.
Yeah.
They're these very, or their remakes of, their science fiction trappings being thrown on older stories like Forbidden Planet is
that's Shakespeare. It's The Tempest.
Yeah. And I think you get into this and it's like, you get into like the late 60s, early 70s and filmmakers starting to be aware that, you could tell any kind of story with science fiction, but there's also certain stories that you can only tell through science fiction. A story like this, there's not really another way to get these kind of themes and ideas across to an audience without setting it in the far future with people whose psychic powers involved and going,
yeah.
Don't you kind of like next time somebody is giving you attitude, don't you kind of want to do see what they do? Like, literally how they use their psychic powers, and it's. But yeah, I think that was, you were getting into a time when it's like, well, let's, we can do the same kind of science fiction we always do, where it's just kind of retelling older myths or whatever, but with lasers, or we can do something a little headier, something that, like I said, can only be done through science fiction. Does it work? Again, I think it's throwing a lot of ideas, probably throwing about 50% more ideas at the audience than it should have. Yeah, it's a little too much.
Yeah,
it kind of doesn't add up necessarily to like your big takeaway from it is like, yeah, I guess being immortal would kind of burn out after a while, but then you have to stay stuck being immortal. It's like, well, that's probably not going to come up for me. I think I'm just going to die when I'm supposed to die. But but these ideas of like, well, using religion to control us, using kind of organized warfare, organized violence to keep populations in check, or provide us with an enemy, or provide us with cheap labor. It's a little much, but I think what it succeeds at is just being completely indelible. I mean, like we watched this with a friend of ours who'd never seen it, and I was like, well, you'll never be able to go the rest of your life and say, if somebody brings up Zardoz, you won't be able to say, I think I saw that. Oh, you'll know you saw it. Right? We talked about that with the Streets of Fire. It's like, you'll have your life before Zardoz and your life after Zardoz. And it may not have a big effect on your life after it, but you're going to remember. You're going to remember every moment of that. And there's something important in that. I think it's like, I have a lot of appreciation for movies that aren't necessarily great, but are indelible. That are, that took such a big swing. Yeah, that you got to appreciate the attempt. I mean, they put Connery in like the Borat, in a red Borat mankini and that's the most clothing he wears in this movie. He's frequently just the loincloth.
Oh, yeah.
And they went for it. And you got to respect that. And it's not just that, it's just all the crazy shit in this movie. The floating stone heads, a floating head monologue to open your film. It's so full of bonkers choices that you have to appreciate that. You're not going to forget this. So is it really bad if it's that indelible in your memory? Is it bad? Did it not succeed in some way?
That's an excellent pay-on to, I think, the power and spectacle and fun of the movie. You know, where it's just like they went balls to the wall with it. I didn't totally understand what was going on.
No,
but like
John Boorman doesn't know what was going. John Boorman doesn't know. He's like, he says, like, there's scenes I shot, I don't know why they're in there. He's like, I was on drugs too. We were all on drugs. I appreciate that. It's like how Stephen King has like whole books that he was so coked out when he has no memory of writing the Tommy Knockers. But he fucking did it. He went for it. He was able to, he can do more high than I can do sober.
Yeah, man, what a really there's a number of magical creative releases here where it's like if you give up on cohesion, then all of a sudden it just becomes like a kaleidoscope, an explosion of possibility. And if you like, if you're altering kind of your consciousness and being creative in that way, and that's not something I've done very often. The vast majorities of like most of our favorite music, probably comes from that part of the brain that kind of got unlocked, if you know what I mean. Like, and there's something, speaking of like the truth of humanity, living in a kind of, I don't know whether it's savagery, but living in a kind of subbrain, or living in a kind of like a locked off part, like that's actually really interesting. I have a view of human development and human history, which is that like we owe a great debt to the freaks and weirdos among us. They're the people that like push society forward, that challenge us to question, that cause us to like adapt and evolve and change. And that's a little bit of a dangerous thing to believe, because it does live in this kind of thing where it's just like it's the great man theory, or the idea of like specialness being required to like bring us forward, and that most of us therefore are not special, which probably we is that true? Is that a truism or is it not a truism? It's really hard to say. All I know is that it's an idea that's a little bit dangerous, you know, and that those politics and those philosophies that really bang hard on that and believe, well, most of us are sheep, but some of us are, you know, geniuses. Like that's really fucked up. And you know, I lean more towards maybe the Bill Hicks philosophy, which is like any 14-year-old who goes out in the field, maybe eat some shrooms and then like sort of understands the universe in a new and unique way. Like all of us have that unlockable potential. um and you know, it's and I think that's why I feel that envy of the 70s, because it really feels like that was maybe a time when the most number of people at a time were just like willing to like unlock themselves in an orgy of of drugs and sex and expression and counterculture and revolution. And yeah, like a lot of them kind of got really messed up from it. And yet like this, you know, we're still looking at the stuff that decade made, and we're still being like what you said, it's indelible. It's just sitting like wow, there was an intensity and a commitment and um and a wild cavorting carefreeness, you know, a willingness to just fuck the rules and just make stuff that is really magical.
Speaking
And
of that,
yeah, and like, you know, I feel like you know, I'm pretty vanilla, I'm pretty straight edge, but you know, the closest I get probably is role playing games, you know, is when I can cut loose and like unlock the parts of myself. um I So, God, I mean, if I wanted to end this conversation, which I don't, but like if I wanted to end it with a statement, be like that, like, oh, okay, we've all got that. We can all unlock it. We just got to figure out how. And it doesn't necessarily have to be drugs. It just has to be just like something that accesses the part of our brains that we usually kind of keep a little bit tight because it's not quite accepted, and just like, you know, indulge ourselves every now and then.
my favorite trivia from this movie.
Hmm.
This is pursuant to what you were talking about a orgy of creativity and sex and drugs. Is that they were doing so much drugs, the atmosphere was so hedonistic that the village where, you know, the cast and crew were living in nearby is place Gary Kennedy, which is the most Irish ass town I've ever heard.
Yes.
They had to bring in a mobile STI clinic. There was so much.
Oh my God.
The census that took place the next year revealed the population of the village grew by 15%.
There you go. The creation, destruction, it's all there. It's all there. Venereal disease, but babies, it's all.
So, if you want to know how they got Connery to be in this movie, there's no way like a significant portion of the population of this town isn't like direct descendants of. He's Genghis Connery. This is the real reason any movie gets made.
Genghis Connery.
Genghis Connery.
I mean, like the talking head is right there. The seed is evil, and he's all, it's not evil. It is my destiny.
It's only evil if you do it right. But yeah, it's at the end of the day, well, this is why anybody makes art, right?
Yeah. It's definitely a prime motivator for many artists. Is the social cachet and the certainly it never worked for me, but you know, these days primary the primary art of my life has been game development, so I'm not surprised that it hasn't like led to a burst of birth rates in an Irish village.
So do you think, so is this good trash, bad trash, or not trash at all?
I don't think I can call this trash. To me, an essential component of what I think of as trash, good trash or bad trash, is a certain amount of pandering. a certain amount of like I know the audience, and I even have like a little bit of contempt for the audience, and I'm gonna give the pigs the slop they want. I there was not much of that in this. I mean, yeah, there's like trippy visuals and there's like a lot of sex, but this is the 70s. There wasn't a movie that didn't have a lot of sex.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, like this also felt like sex that was like talked about over, long dinners, like it was it was grasping for a kind of intellectualism to it, that even though I'm sure, yeah, they're all maybe cooked out of their heads and partying like crazy all the time, I don't think that they probably understood to some extent that getting that on the screen was going to be pretty popular, but it wasn't. It wasn't popular because I think they were trying to intellectualize it at a level that just went over a lot of heads.
Yeah.
So I don't think I can call this trash. Even though it exists in a cultural space that is very much weird, kinky, trashy cult movie, to me, like, I just don't think it's an exploitive movie, and I mean that exploitive in a little bit of a positive light. Like it's not. It wasn't trying to give people what they want. It was trying to like fulfill an artistic vision and create something out of this experience of intellectualism and discourse and hedonism. So yeah,
I think it's art.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
yeah.
Is it great
By
art?
every definition of art.
I don't know. It's abstract. I mean, it's very abstract. It's, it is the contents of John Boorman's mind in 1974. Make of that what you will, including whatever substances he happened to be using at the time. But I mean, it is his brain vomit right there on the screen, but it's everything there is very intentional. It's not, it's, if you look at modern art, it's a lot of people will say, well, I can do that. They look at the paint splatters, or they don't see that the design is, well, it's dripped, Jackson Pollock dripped it here for this reason, and he dripped it in this color for this reason. And, and if it looked like he was just going, he was doing that for a reason.
Yeah.
And that's not something everybody can do. And, I think the fact that, you can glean so many different, too many ideas out of this movie, I think that's, maybe to its detriment as art, but it's still art. It's, you have to give way to whatever ideas they're trying to instill in you. And this movie is all about drilling throwing ideas at you every 5 minutes, whether you like it or not. So I think it's like, is it successful art? I
mean, we're talking about it on a podcast like 50 years later. So if that's a metric of success, then sure. I mean,
sure.
But yeah, I think we're in complete agreement about the status and the cachet and as you put it, the indelibility of this movie. It's a mind blower in all sorts of different ways, both subtle and ridiculous.
This is the kind of movie I kind of wish, a good Hollywood auteur would come along and do a remake of.
Yep.
Maybe just strip, just the bare, skeleton framework of the characters and plot. But there's, I think, enough good ideas in this movie to sustain a good, a more successful version of this movie. And, it's stop remaking, the same movies over. And, I mean, I'll go see the new Fantastic Four, but we don't need 3 different versions of Fantastic Four. We need a good, a great version of Zardoz. Because
Yeah.
I think there's enough meat on that bone there to make an actual great movie, and not just a movie that is like, wow, that was certainly a movie, wasn't it? He really wore the shit out of that red diaper.
Man, I don't know if you could remake this movie. I'm trying to imagine what it would look like.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nick Cage. It would have to be Nick Cage, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm surprised he's not making it right now. And then 5 years later, and there's Nick Cage going, oh, I see nothing inside but my own perplexity.
That's a pretty good. You kind of nailed that. That's a solid impression.
Oh,
Gosh.
and it's Cage and Connery. They were. Oh, it's be like a meta rock reunion, except one of them is dead, but he's playing the same character. Oh, this works on so many levels. I'm gonna have my people contact his people.
All right. I wish you the best of luck in selling this. I still can't see it. I'm trying hard. 2024 Zardoz. Oh man.
We still have time to make this before the end of the 50th anniversary.
Perhaps, yes.
I got nothing going on next weekend. I'm gonna call his people.
All right.
Meet me at the quarry, Nick.
Well, I'm all for doing a Nick Cage for our next show.
Oh yeah. What do you got in mind?
I don't know. There's so many great options.
Have you seen Wild at Heart? That's a hole in my knowledge.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to watch. Okay.
It's been a long time since I've seen Wild at Heart.
Because that fits my Nick Cage and David Lynch niches.
The Nick Cage movie that I've never seen that I probably should is the Bad Lieutenant sequel.
Oh, that's a great.
You've seen it? Okay.
Oh yes, I will watch it again. I don't care. You gonna twist my arm to get me watching Nick Cage at his most gonzo? And oh yeah, I mean, if you're promised a gonzo Nick Cage performance and you get it in that movie, it is. Werner Herzog lets him loose.
I don't think I can do Port of New Orleans.
Be in the right headspace for it, that's for sure. Yeah. Well, we can discuss this off.
Yeah, we'll figure it offline. There was a movie actually that I wanted to propose that, of course, has completely escaped me here at the moment. And you know, I've been meaning and wanting to kind of also nudge us to like talk about things, talk about games, talk about shows.
Yeah.
Explore some other worlds of trash and art and things that we like that we maybe feel like maybe we shouldn't. Seems like such a rich vein. Alrighty, my friend. We're past an hour. I think we should probably call it. But this was great, man. You nailed it. You nailed a juicy movie that we could rant about. It's a good call. And
yeah,
gosh,
well,
yeah,
I'm happy to have ushered you into the ways of Zardoz.
So you are clearly in a position where you can recommend and encourage people to see Zardoz. I don't feel like I'm at that point yet. I feel like if I tried to sell Zardoz on someone, I would be overwhelmed by possible judgment of me for attempting to push them there. So my hat's off to you. Much respect that you were able to make that. Gosh, I mean the whole point of talking about this stuff for me has very much been like shake off that shame. Like what you like.
Exactly.
Like, don't, just embrace it.
Well, yeah, look, if you've never seen Zardoz before, you got a free afternoon. It's probably free on something somewhere. Come for the memes, because it's Chuck. You've seen the memes.
Cool.
You've seen the red diaper. Stay for the heady metatextual Jungian archetypes and deconstructions of religion.
Nice.
Or, and there's lots of tits too.
All right. Well, maybe somebody will do Excalibur, and like it'll be kind of a quasi sequel to this conversation.
Oh boy, that one.
I haven't seen that one since I was a teenager.
Yeah, I haven't. It's been about 20 years for me,
Yep.
but that's another indelible one, right?
Cool. All right. Well, man, bless you. Thank you so much for finally fighting to get together and chat.
Yeah.
Cool beans. Yeah. I am Cobalt Style on the socials, or you can find me on Facebook sometimes. God knows why you would.
I'm Shiny Failure. Please find me.
Good stuff.
Wow.
We are just a couple of middle-aged nerds talking about stuff. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening.
Later, guys.
Peace.